Okay. Well, good morning. Welcome to another edition of the Long Coffee Break. My name is Jeff Rodell. I'm a sales engineer here at the company. I have Kevin Ford from Nederman joining us to help with the presentation today. We will um, focus on dust collection and the different types of options you have in that particular market. So with that said, I will pass the mic over to Kevin and let him start the slideshow. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you, Jeff. Again, like he said, my name's Kevin Ford. I'm the solution sales manager for Nederman South Central. My main job is basically filtration applications and different things of that nature, going into plants and trying to figure out what we can put for the best solution. So one of the things I want to talk about today, which is, I get a lot of questions on, is filter bags versus cartridges, and what applications and what we need to know to put the right type of filtration onto the application. So on a couple things too, just a little dust collection general rules that we look at internally. No two applications are the same. No two applications have the exact same solution. Bags and cartridges have their specific place in the market. We'll get into a little bit of that. All bag houses do not perform the same, and that's determined on the size and the material, just like it is on cartridge collectors as well. Filter media type is just as important, or sometimes more important, than the dust collector type itself. The wrong solution, this is key. The wrong solution may work for a little bit of time, but typically cost longer for operating. And we're going to get into that. And mainly that's for applications where we look at where cartridge units have been around for a long time. And that's always the go-to. And we have to make sure we ask the right questions and get the right information to determine if a cartridge collector is viable, and or do we need to go do a bag filter. So here's some examples of a lot of different applications we get into. These are pretty, you at one point in time have probably seen them come across your desk. You get into wood dust. You have wood flour versus sawdust, wood shavings. Wood flour is what we call more sanding. If you're familiar with that, that gets a lot finer, and then in some cases just with material that we deal with. Wheat processing, we get into that. Shafts versus the husk versus the grain versus the wheat, and then the wheat flour, baking flour, bread flour, different things like that. Spices, salt, pepper, peppercorns, metal dust, grinding, cutting, swarth. We get into it all. But the thing is that we want to talk about is being careful about just the simple application name. Somebody will just come in and go, "Hey, I've got, I'm doing a flour application." Things like that. Okay, are we talking about where the flour is being taken from the wheat, where you're putting it in a hammer mill and grinding it and creating, 10, 15 yards of material an hour? Are we talking about an application where you're at a food plant and the materials are being mixed together to make a product, and now you're just talking about maybe the material of a bag being poured in and just the light dust coming in? So it's very important that we know how much we're going to be able to capture in which product that we want to put on those types of applications. Solutions, similar but different. There's indoor installations versus outdoor installation. Sometimes the customer won't have a preference, and in some cases they will. We have food projects all the time where we're putting it right next to the application, even in combustible dust. Those have different rules in itself, so we have to look at it. Hygroscopic dust in outdoor collections may require insulation, continuous fan operation, and heat. Believe it or not, the weather in itself can sometimes play a role into our dust collector being the right application and or working properly, especially when we have to look at moisture and things of that nature. Two similar machine lines that may have different systems requirements, but due to a newer machine, create finer dust. That is more prominent now than we've been dealing with in the last 20 years. Machines themselves are getting a lot more detailed, a lot more. The technology is just getting better overall. So I can take a CNC from a shop that's 8 years old, and it's going to create a certain amount of dust based that we're used to dealing with a certain velocity. And then, but today, the machines cut faster, quicker, and they're trying to produce more. So the overall tooling has gotten a lot better, and that works in the food industry just as much. Uh, Two identical plants is another solution here. We look at two identical plants that I was referring to. One near an ocean and one in the mountains have different elevation requirements, corrosion issues, temperature issues, and humidity issues that we may have to deal with. So those are things that we look at in throughout when we're looking at an application. So bag versus cartridge. Here's a nice little uh, slide that we have breaking things down. When you have large dust, 20 plus microns, bags are typically recommended. And then cartridges are not, just because 20 microns is a large dust. It's a large particulate. So with cartridges, you have the pleats and depending on, and you have different depths in there. These large particulates can get embedded in there to where you can't clean it. You can't push the product out, so the cartridges won't clean. And so that's what we look at. Powders, 5 to 20 microns. High volume applications are going to be with bags, whereas low volume we can do with cartridges. Smoke fumes, that refers to applications like welding, plasma cutting, things of that nature. 9 times out of 10, we're not going to be looking at bags in those applications. We're going to be looking at more of the cartridge collector. Fibrous and agglomerative dust, bags are always recommended. And that's referring to just the amount of material itself that I've been referring to. It's a lot different when you're emptying, 3, 5, 10 yards an hour, 20 yards an hour, as opposed to filling up a 55-gallon drum over 2 weeks. So cartridges, we typically don't use that, just like we'd say, pleat packing and dust relief. Basically, you're going to put a cartridge collector in there, like my statement said earlier. It's going to work really hard to not give you a good solution. Right off the bat, it's going to work well, but within a month, you're going to be replacing material all the time. Abrasive dust, we do look at bags more often in abrasive dust. With cartridges, we do, but it's just heavier medias, more metal products. We get into a lot of powders with plastics and stuff like that we can sometimes use cartridges on there. Hygroscopic dust, that depends on a lot of factors on either one, and then high temperatures as well. The bags have a higher temperature rating than cartridge collectors. For instance, I did a plant not too long ago where we were doing they were coating the fence that you guys put around your yard. And so they create a lot of dust because it's plastic and everything. The problem was, or they didn't create a lot of dust. The problem was the temperature was getting up to 350 to 400 degrees. Cartridge collectors the cartridges themselves cannot handle that type of temperature. So we'll look at bags in a lot of those applications. Bags versus cartridges. Large, dry, fibrous, non-hygroscopic dust in cartridge collectors. This is what it looks like. Dust with fibrous or agglomerative. They're just going to pack tight inside those seals. And again, it does not matter how much you pulse clean it. You're going to use a lot of compressed air. You just can't keep them very clean. And they're just not good applications. But again, they've been around a long time, and a lot of times this becomes a education part with the customers through this. Your high pressure drops, that also drives up your energy costs because again, now your system's running at a higher static pressure. That means that you're going to be ramping up that fan at full capacity, and then you're pulse cleaning all the time because there's differential pressure gauges in there that are telling your system that it's full, and so your filter life goes down. So yes, you may save some money on the front side because it works well, but you're going to pay higher cost at the end of the day. There are some custom cartridge filters that can be made in certain applications to solve some problem, but again, you have to get a lot of information and a lot of testing to go along with that. Bag houses would never have these type of problems with the dust. Cartridge collectors are smaller, cheaper, but added cost to solve is made, and it makes it more expensive in the long run. Bags, not all bags are the same. Polyester bags are industry standard, but not all the same. Most companies use polyester felt, rigid bags. Nederman uses a stretchable fabric, what we call a super bag or like a bean bag. This allows us to offer a lot more life expectancy with our applications. We can get a higher air to cloth ratio. There is an anti-static material already woven inside. So whether you have a combustible or non-combustible dust, we don't have a lot of problems with static buildup that's needed. And then load pressure drop, and then same bags we use in the low and high end on our larger dust collectors. Here's some of the information we have on our super bag materials, talking about the elasticity of it. And again, we don't put cages inside or don't need them for our bags. So that also saves a lot of money because a lot of times those cages get around those bags and it just holds material in there. And again, you're still using compressed air on a bag filter with the cages to get these things clean. So um, cartridges, again, they're not all the same. Many factors that we have to look at for cartridges to decide effective performance. Again, large diameter filters per cartridge with compressed air. You have shallow pleat, which obviously cleans easier, and what you want 1.5 to 2 inches. The pleat spacing, the wider the pleat spacing also allows it for easier cleaning. We'll do that on a lot of times with our nano system for welding, just so we can give a year to 2 filter guarantee on our systems because we don't want to be messing with them. Proper balance of the filter material and spacing is critical. Large dust requires large pleats spacing than the smaller dust particulate. The vertical cartridge versus horizontal cartridge. Vertical cartridges have experience to last a lot longer just because the vertical pleats allow it to basically not re-entrain inside. When you have a horizontal collector, you clean on top of your dust from one collector or cartridge goes to another, to another, to another. And so your top cartridges are always clean and your bottom cartridges are always full. Many units over pulse, they do a lot of pulse wasting compressed air just because they're having to clean all the time. The different collector designs, I'm looking real quick. Okay, 3 minutes. Different collector designs for different purposes. You have the shaker, which is a bag house. That's easy for low end, small cabinet shops, small food applications where you're still collecting a lot of material, but you're not. It's not overbearing. It's more in a controlled environment. A good example is just you have a cabinet shop that's producing. For one application I have is I've got with the LBR reverse air. I got a cabinet shop that produces 6 18-wheeler truckloads, a 50-foot trailer a day, versus the cabinet shop right down the street. They fill up 2 55-gallon barrels in 2 weeks. So there's where we would use the different applications. Light to medium duty electricity. Neither one of those require compressed air to clean them. And then the filter pressure is 1 to 3 inches. And that's what we're looking at is we actually add static of the filter being full on the overall static of the system. So your shakers are your lowest cost operation. Your reverse air cleaning is your medium cost. And then the compressed air cartridge collector will always be your highest cost because it requires compressed air to clean those. Higher costs with the wrong solution. This is where we get called in to undo somebody else's problem. Many customers purchase with the intent of the lowest cost. We all know everything's about budgets, so we will offer a different application. They take the cheapest. So basically, a lot of times we deal with undersized units. The bag house, whereas they actually installed a smaller bag house, what it actually should have been a cartridge collector. And then this happens more often in woodworking. With cartridges, I still don't understand why people put cartridges on wood. If you're doing sanding only, cartridge works all day long. But if you're doing any other type of material, cutting table saw dust will blind a cartridge filter in less than 2 weeks. So, and you just end up with a lot more cleaning and a higher pressure, and your system doesn't work all the time. Most customers want the right solution, not the cheap solution. We say that, but we know that's not always true. So unfortunately, customers expect proper performance through the life of the product. Nederman offers the right product for the application and the solutions for the customer's requirements. That's where one of the things that we do is when we lay out a system with our design and our offering behind it, Nederman stands behind it. So I got it done. Hey, 15
Hey,
seconds
look
left.
nicely done, Kevin. So if there are any questions, please contact your Long sales engineer. We are more than willing to provide the information needed for selections or any replacement opportunities as well. So next week is obviously the Longtoberfest, or coming up in a few weeks, excuse me, on the 24th. So Jeff McBride will go over a review of our Longtoberfest, discuss which manufacturers and all the different fun events that we'll have at Longtoberfest. So love to see everyone on this call out there. I know Kevin will be there as well. Thanks again, everyone. Appreciate your time this morning, and we will see you next week for Long Coffee Break.